Israel here in just one second, because apparently there has been a practice for the sacrifice of one of the red heifers. What does that mean? What does that mean? I think those of you that are regular viewers and listeners know exactly what it means. They're counting on having a temple soon. They pretty much have everything they need minus a temple. But again, they could just go with a tabernacle for a while, right? Now, before we go to him, and of course, we have the Israeli prime minister is here in America right now. So I'm sure Aaron has some thoughts on that. The fighting in Gaza is very intense. We've got some dead IDF. Hamas, they just won't go away. They're still in those tunnels. They're still fighting. And I think, folks, it's just the sign of the times. I don't know. We'll find out from Aaron. Is this ever going to end? But it's been very costly for Israel. It really has. And it's not done yet. They're still fighting. I know it's gotten drowned out with all the other news, but it's still there. We got to get an update. Now, I want to bring you an update. Speaking of updates, I want to bring you an update on what seems to be, by many former intelligence people, their belief that America is going to be hit with a terrorist attack bigger than 9/11. One of those individuals, and we've put in a request to try to see if we can get her on the broadcast, is former CIA gal Sarah Adams. Now, she's been warning about these invisible bombs, as you know, we dealt with yesterday, these invisible bombs. Visible meaning they don't show up. So how do these things work? Well, today she put out more information. She actually showed a video. I guess Al-Qaeda has released a video, a very small little video, showing a picture of, well, let me go up here for the radio audience. I'll explain it. It is a video just simply, and this is the Inspire magazine. Remember Inspire, Al-Qaeda's magazine, Inspire magazine? And it's showing a guy with two items in his hand, and there's some kind of tube running from one device, from what looks like a syringe with a tube going to it, to another device in his other hand, okay? And a lot of folks began to ask, what is this about? She said, no metal parts. The invisible bomb has been around since the 1980s. It's not claims the underwear bomber. The underwear bomb was a successful invisible bomb that got through screening at 3 airports. Okay? It's not, she says, it's not claims the underwear bomber was a successful invisible bomb that got through screening at 3 airports. This is the newer, more innovative version of that bomb. Okay? And then people began to ask, well, what is this all about? She says, it's a chemical initiation. You inject the syringe just prior in the real world. So just prior to you want it to be detonated, you do that. There's a chemical chamber in each. When the chemicals come together, it ignites like a chemical light. The syringe is stored separate until the suicide bomber is ready. No, he does not need gloves because he's wearing gloves in the picture. This is the prototype. So it's older, and the airline version is slightly smaller than this prototype. Okay? So she's being very specific. In fact, as you go through the thread, she goes on to talk about the fact that these came into the country. I don't know if it's in this thread or not, but in one of probably not. I guess maybe it is. I don't know. Let me go back up here. But in one of these threads, she claims that these have come into the U.S. during the Biden regime, and that one has come through during Trump's term. Now, where she's getting her information, I don't know, but she's clearly got sources. She's still being fed information because she's not saying my opinion, it's believed. She's She's being very specific. And she said, this is why everyone should go through the millimeter improved screening. Everyone should go through the millimeter improved screening. They're not using it, apparently. All persons must go through the millimeter wave scanners to stop this plot if the government can't thwart the bombers prior. And again, I have to tell you, she is being extremely aggressive. I'm not saying in a bad way, but she's being extremely aggressive with her warnings. Now, she's not the only one. There are others. I have this from the Air Marshal National Council. I follow a lot of these groups. The Air Marshal National Council. So these are your air marshals, right? When you get on an airplane, there's sometimes, depending on the plane, there's air marshals there. They're not identified. That's the whole idea. They're undercover. I have a friend of mine that knows one of these air marshals. And the Air Marshal National Council has filed a complaint with Congress over the improper use of air marshals. Yesterday, we explained to you that they were saying, look, we've got air marshals that should be on flights, but they're down on the border checking for headlights and walking people to the bathrooms like prison guards. And this is at a time when we have heightened security concerns with our planes. You're not hearing this talked about a lot, are you? Now, the question is going to be, how long before other networks start talking about this? Or will they ever? But we, of course, will save all of this. God forbid this happens. We'll be replaying clips and saying we were talking about it. We were tracking people that were warning about these things. Remember, we were pounding on the desk about the terror cells in America for several days when there was the talk of striking Iran and warning the country. And that didn't get talked about for about 8-9 days. And then finally, all of a sudden, it was everywhere. Maybe this will happen here. Maybe this threat to our airlines will become a regular news story, but it isn't right now. But this is one of the stories that we're really tracking. Now, since we were on the air yesterday, we have the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. And what was kind of shocking for many of us, Donald Trump, President Trump's response when a reporter asked the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, about the Epstein files that we were promised would come out. President Trump talked about them during the campaign over and over and over. And Pam Bondi, after President Trump was sworn in, talked about they're on her desk and there are all these videos. And all of a sudden, when a reporter asked her about it yesterday, President Trump on video that you guys have probably all seen by now, smacks the reporter down and says, I can't believe you're asking about this. Creepy guy still. This is not going well for MAGA. Now, this radio audience knows, maybe not the TV audience, but certainly the radio audience knows that for years, I've been telling this radio audience that many of our politicians are blackmailed. We've been saying this for so long when people probably at the time thought, well, that's conspiratorial. I mean, I thought kind of maybe even a little odd that he talks about that so often, right? Remember that? How many years ago? And I didn't really know much about Jeffrey Epstein when I was saying that. But what I did know was about people like Larry McDonald, the former congressman, who apparently was caught in a honeypot, a trap, and videoed. And they wanted to use it to control him. I think he ended up being on the flight that got shot down by the Soviet Union, the airliner. Remember that? The one I think Jesse Helms was supposed to get on, but didn't. I knew about the mafia blackmailing people that they wanted to control. The former Soviet Union, then Soviet Union. Think Larry McDonald and others. So common sense says, if you want to control people, you got to get leverage on them. And you can compromise them with money. By the way, we knew this was going on too, because I was reading the books of people like, he spent 14 years in a Romanian communist prison. Remember the pastor? Wrote the book, Marx and Satan. His name escapes me for a minute. Romanian pastor, Marx and Satan. All you guys are all saying it out loud to yourselves right now, but it'll come to me in a minute. Richard Wurmbrand, thank you. How'd you know that, Logan? Good for you, Logan. He looked up the book. Well, there you go. And Aaron from Israel texted me, Richard Wurmbrand. See, I knew you guys would all know it. Everybody's shouting at their TVs and radio. Richard Wurmbrand, well, thank you. A senior moment there. A Biden moment there. Although I did remember somebody's name today, and I was shocked I remembered it. I thought, hey, maybe I'm sharper than I know I am. But I was reading Richard Wurmbrand, and he was writing then about how the communists would entrap pastors with money. And then if they couldn't entrap them with money, they would entrap them with a honeypot. And that's the phrase that's used when you use like a woman to ensnare them and get them caught in a compromising position. And now you control them. So I was reading about all those things from the Soviet Union, the Romania, communist bloc. And common sense said, this is how you control people. And there are very powerful groups that have to employ the same thing. Human nature just tells you this is going on. And the way you see politicians campaign, and then the way you see them govern, tells you, why'd they flip? Why'd they change? They're not the same person. Human nature tells you they're being controlled. Now the question is, how? Was their spouse offered a high-paying job, six-figure job with some corporation? Were they caught in a honey pot trap? What is it? So when I was talking about many of our politicians being compromised, I was doing it based on that. That was before I knew a lot about Jeffrey Epstein, or any of us did. Now we're hearing that that's exactly what's been going on with Jeffrey Epstein, but it's been going on an international basis. Roger Stone was on my broadcast last night. He said, Brandon, I had a lot of people call me wanting me to interview me about a Daily Mail piece. It was a headline piece yesterday. Roger didn't even know it was out. He's like, send it to me. I sent it to him. And he said, yes, I'll be on with you. So we got an exclusive with Roger Stone last night, probably at worldviewtube.com. And Roger said last night, President Trump is likely receiving pressure internationally from international governments. Don't go away.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com.
All right, welcome back. We're going to go to Aaron here in just a minute. But Roger Stone on my broadcast last night said, perhaps President Trump is receiving pressure at an international level to not go anywhere with this Jeffrey Epstein thing. You mean like the royal family, maybe? Think Prince Andrew, question mark. Could it be we have Israeli officials? Could it be we have UK officials? And if you're trying to cut tariff deals and you're trying to cut other deals with countries, well, they'll have reason to say, please don't be releasing all this. We'll cut deals. I don't know, maybe President Trump himself is using it as leverage where he needs to. But I'll tell you something, folks. We are not a free people with freely elected people representing us. We know that in many regards, the elections are not clean. But even when they are, sadly, many of our politicians and elected officials are compromised and controlled. Let me just share a little bit here before we go to Aaron. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Listen to this.
There's a provision in the CIA charter that
Okay, but there's a provision in the CIA charter. You guys listening? Here we go.
provision in the CIA charter that says that the CIA cannot propagandize the American people. President Obama adopted in 2016 that essentially reopened the door for Operation Mockingbird so that the CIA began once again to propagandize American people.
How are they doing that, President?
High-level intelligence officials or people associated with the intelligence industry are running those journals, like Noah Schlachman, who runs Rolling Stone, who came from Daily Beast. Daily Beast was run by John Avalon, who has deep ties to the intelligence agencies. And even journals like Smithsonian and National Geographic, Nature, the Washington Post, the New York Times appear to be compromised by the CIA. We know from the Twitter files that both the FBI and CIA were operating portals within the Twitter and Facebook that allowed them to manipulate information and to deplatform people and to silence certain people that they didn't like in the social media. Operation Mockingbird was an operation to compromise American journalists. There were some 400 editors, journalists from all the largest publications. The New York Times had been compromised. The Washington Post was basically...
What do you mean by compromised for people who...
Well, they were functioning, the high-level people at those journals were working for the agency or had, signed secrecy agreements with the CIA. And at CBS, ABC, NBC, after 75, when it all came out, during the Church Committee hearings, the CIA promised that it would no longer compromise American journalists. It continued the program to compromise journalists all over the world, and today the CIA is the biggest funder of journalism in the world.
And how about present day?
They fund it through USAID. In that little twilight zone before you fall asleep every day.
Okay, so funding a lot of it through USAID. So again, folks, this is the reality. So many things that we've talked about, we're told, we're conspiracy, and the things that House talks about are just so fantastic they can't be true. Isn't it amazing the things that we learn from history, whether reading Richard Wurmbrand or reading former KGB guys that came to America and flipped and were writing books and warning. Now, I don't know why the Trump administration is getting a lot of pressure, other than if we were to find out who is on the list, who's on video, it could probably be some of the biggest names in America, including people maybe even in the MAGA world, the so-called conservative world. But one thing is sure. Many, many experts believe that this country is largely run by the intelligence arena, and it's with blackmail. And I don't think you're ever going to find out the truth about Jeffrey Epstein. I don't think you'll ever find out the truth, ever. And I don't know if they've scared President Trump with something, or if he's himself keeping it quiet so he can use it for leverage himself, as some have surmised. I don't know if he's getting pressure, as Roger Stone hinted at last night, from international bodies or governments because of some of their people that are involved in this. But this is going on a worldwide scale. And as long as there's no transparency, then we really don't have a free functioning constitutional republic. And that's sad. And without that, you cannot make America great again. These are just basic common sense conclusions. Tell me how I'm wrong. Joining me now is Aaron Lavarco out of Israel. Aaron, welcome back to the broadcast. Dolly's whining at the studio door if somebody wants to let her in. She doesn't have a thumb. She has no thumbs. She doesn't know how to turn the doorknob. Aaron, how are you doing, my friend?
Hi, Brandon. Good to be back with you. Doing well, thank you. It's relatively quiet without sirens, and there's a big sense of back to normality, and hope that things are going to go back to normal as far as flight companies starting up again, tourism coming back. People may be able to go back to their homes. Still there are people displaced. And maybe starting up their farming businesses as well. So there's a hope in the air, and especially this week with our Prime Minister in Washington, everyone's waiting to see what the real outcome of these talks are going to be. We haven't really found out too much yet. A lot of talk, but not much action. So we're still waiting and discussing and speculating.
Okay. Well, let's go to something that came out today, July 9th, related to the red heifers. If people go over to worldviewreport.com, your daily aggregated news site, you will see that we have a report, Biblical Red Heifer Ritual Comes to Life in Rehearsal Ceremony. A red heifer raised in Israel was disqualified for sacrifice after 2 black hairs were found on its body. It was used in a practice burning ceremony for priests. And there's a video provided. And they're burning this red heifer on a large fire. Now, I'm assuming it was done humanely, that what they do, slit the throat of the red heifer first and then put it on the fire. Is that right?
I believe so, Brandon. From what the reports that I've read, yeah, they would have done it as humanely as possible. I'm sure there are critics out there, but they would do this based on historical accounts and records about how to go about what is the procedure and what is the kosher way to go about this.
So there's a statement out. You want to tell us about the statement by Byron Stinson, team leader of the Bunha Israel and founder of BuildTheTemple.com? You want me to read it, or you want to read it?
Well, you can read it, but let me just give an intro. After you texted me and said you wanted to talk about this topic, I quickly got on the phone to Byron. Now, Byron Stinson is one of the founders of the group in Dallas, Texas, who found the red heifers, who organized to connect the red heifers with the Sanhedrin. He is residing permanently long term in Shiloh. And Shiloh is the place where the red heifers are abiding. I sent that video with me standing right next to them about 2 months ago. And so I got on the phone and I asked him, hey, Byron, are you available to come and be on live with Brandon Howes and myself? He actually was sorry he couldn't make it. He was tied up. But he did say, I am happy to send you a latest report update on the situation. Now, I did ask him about that article that you just showed. I did ask him about the sacrifice yesterday, the trial. He didn't respond, Brandon. I don't know why. He heard me. He didn't respond. And I'm guessing it's because the people that did that sacrifice are a different organization and he's not affiliated with them. But his update I sent to you, if you want
Yeah.
to go ahead and read.
All right, here we go. B'nai Israel, a Texas-based nonprofit, confirms that preparations for the official red heifer purification ceremony are still underway. In partnership with Temple 3 Media, we are producing educational content to help the public better understand the biblical commandment and the detailed preparations involved. In light of recent confusion caused by conflicting reports from various sources, we are working to clarify the facts surrounding our recent red heifer ceremony practice in Israel. An official educational video is currently in production and will be released soon. For accurate updates, please visit it's BONE for those wanting to go there, BONEH, Israel.com. And there's also Temple and then the number. Temple, actually, it's not even spelled out. It's TEMPL, the number 3. So instead of the letter E, they go with the number 3. TEMPL, the number 3 .media. And so there you go. So,
Brennan, one
yeah.
of the issues as far as the conflicting reports about going ahead with these sacrifices is that just like 2,000 years ago, today is the same. There are big differences of opinion among Orthodox Jews about the procedure, how to go about the sacrifice.
Mhm.
There are so many details involved. If I can use a silly analogy, it would be like going to the Presbyterians, the Baptists, the Methodists, the Episcopalians, and asking them, what is the correct way to do a baptism? You know, is it sprinkling? Is it dunking? Is it this? Is it that? So in the Sanhedrin today, there are differences of opinion. For example, there are some that believe that the priests, they need to be immersed a certain amount of days before they do the sacrifice. Some others believe, well, they only have to be sprinkled with the ashes of the red heifers. That's what the red heifers, after all, are all about. The red heifers, once they're sacrifices, the idea, the importance of it is to take the ashes, mix it with a few things like a myrtle tree and some hyssop, and you then sprinkle it on the priests to purify the priest. But again, how soon is the priest ready to do the sacrifice? After he's been sprinkled with these ashes. These are the big differences of opinion. Some people say that the priest is not allowed to be with his wife at least a week before the sacrifice. And then there's the waters of the pools of Siloam.
All right, hold right there. We'll be right back. More from Aaron in Israel. Don't go away.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio website, worldviewradio.com. Aaron, our reporter from Israel, brought to you in part by our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. And we are talking about many things, but right now we're talking about what was reported to be a practice, if you will, for the red heifers. And they've burned one in Israel, and the footage is available in the article. that we have posted at worldviewreport.com if you want to look for it. So the priests are practicing. This is very interesting, Aaron, because we have the priest practicing burning the red heifer. We have the choir. We have played the video of the choir practicing, singing. We have rabbis cutting stones. We have all the instruments that are on display for the temple at the Temple Institute. I mean, they're not doing this thinking this is 10 years away.
Exactly, Brandon. Do you know what the word on the street I'm hearing?
Well, no, I don't, because I'm not out there on the street, but you are. What is the word on the street?
Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Dangerous.
Really?
Dangerous. People seeing this sacrifice, these flames, and they're calling it dangerous. Politically, spiritually, religiously dangerous. And because they see the handwriting on the wall, just like you said, it's not going to be 10 years.
No.
And you mentioned practically everything. One other thing to add is the other pools of Siloam that are being excavated, being made ready for the immersion, the ritual purification of the priests. It's not going to be 10 years. No way.
Now, when you go a little bit more into that, please, the excavation going on.
Well, at the southern end of the Temple Mount, literally, I'm talking a few hundred meters.
Wait a minute. Why have you not been there yet with a camera to show us all this?
Well, I'm going to go there. Now, I would love to go there live, Brandon, but the problem is it's dark. It's going to be nighttime when I do it.
No, that's fine. Whenever you want to do it, but we'll Logan, what do we need to do to get him is it going to be his phone? Do we need to get him a better microphone? But whatever it is, we got to start getting you to going on these locations that we've been talking about for months. We got to pull the trigger on this.
You know what we did? We talked about this, but then the war with Iran broke out. Just as I was ready to launch into that, I'm getting ready. I've done a couple of trial runs.
Okay.
All I've got at the moment is an iPhone, and it's very good quality.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can hardly tell with the 4K iPhones now. We just need a good microphone, which I think I've seen you with one of those clip-on microphones, so you can get good audio.
Yep. Yeah, I'll get there. I'm going to get there.
Okay, so so you're going to go there, and this is right by the Temple Mount.
Absolutely, literally within a couple of 100 meters south of the Temple Mount, right inside of the city of David. Actually, some people believe, and they've written books, saying that it's where the city of David is in the southern part. That's where the real temple stood. And I've read that book, and I've read the articles, and it's a growing belief that's
okay. Whoa. So my friend Bob Cornuke. You know Bob Cornuke's a friend of mine, right?
I do now. I did not know that.
You know Bob has spoken for our organization for almost 30 years.
Is he the man that is involved in the possibility of finding all this treasure in Qumran?
No, that's the guy with Dr. Rob Lindstedt. But this Bob Cornuke is the guy that was working on Mount Sinai, in the Saudi Arabia Peninsula, looking for the Ark of the Covenant, Noah's Ark. But he's the one that's been doing all the study at Base Institute, Bible Archaeology, Scripture and Exploration or something. I'll go look it up. But it's an acronym. And I've had Bob on extensively about his belief, and he's showing it from the scriptures, and then he's showing it archaeologically, how the Romans would have not been able to see the ripping of the temple veil unless they were unless the temple was there in the city of David, just down the hill. We're not even talking that far. Everybody makes a huge deal about it, like it's like 20 miles away. We're literally talking about, what, a couple hundred yards difference?
Exactly. Okay, so he's in that camp.
Yes.
That believes it's in the south part. Okay, well, I've done a lot of research, and being a licensed tour guide, it's my profession to know, basically the archaeology, the history, the geography, and everything. And based on my research and study, Brandon, and based on what most of the top archaeological scholars in Israel say, it is not in the city of David.
Okay, but you brought up the city of David. That's how we went there. Why did you bring up the city of David?
Well, no, I just happened to mention because right in the city of David is where the pools of Siloam are.
Okay.
They're situated in that southern part of the city of David. And then I happen to mention there are some people that believe that that's where the temple was. Okay. So, but let me just add before we go on. I have read some arguments of people who do believe that it was in the city, and some of their arguments are brilliant.
Yes, they are.
They are amazing arguments, and it's hard to dispute them. But the big argument, Brandon, the big argument is where the Western Wall is. You can see layer after layer after layer of massive 3 to 5 ton Herodian stones that were built to build the temple walls, to fortify the walls. That's
of course, they say that was built by the Romans as a fortress. It was there where the soldiers were living and whatnot.
Yeah, it's only a fortress. Well, the counter argument to that, Brandon, is the size of those stones. That is not the average size of a fortress. That is way too big to be a fortress in Jerusalem. It does not make sense. And that's the counter argument.
I should have one night where I should have you on and Bob Cornuke and let you guys go back and forth and talk about this, because you would like Bob on a personal level, and he would like you. But I think you guys would really. Our audience loves it when people have friendly debates. You know, our audience loves it. We get so many emails when we have guests that disagree. Like when you were disagreeing one night with someone, I can't remember who it was. We get such great emails with people. We love that back and forth because it helps us to, it reinforces either what we believe or we actually change our position and go to the other guy's position because he makes the better case. So we should have you and Bob on. But with that being said, the excavation of these pools, the timing is so,
This is the key. This is the key, Brent. The timing is, it's too coincidental.
Exactly. They weren't doing this. They weren't doing this 10 years ago, or they're not waiting to do the excavation 5 years from now. All of these things are falling into place, and I have to believe that it's all falling into place by God's providential hand.
Yeah. When you get, I liken archaeology and even studying the scriptures, I liken it to being a detective. Like a movie, a detective turns up on the scene and he doesn't touch anything and he looks at everything and he logs everything and he tries to reconstruct what possibly could have happened. And he puts this piece together and he puts that piece together. And if you are to look at what's happening today, in and around the topic of rebuilding the temple, where this is coming together and that's coming together and this is coming together, you've got to say, you've got to look back at 100 years' time and say, this was the hand of God bringing everything together at a specific time, in a specific place, with specific people. And let's not forget, and this is something that a lot of Christians haven't really caught, it's the involvement of Gentiles. You see, the one verse that I keep going back to that the Lord quoted 2,000 years ago when he was referring to the temple, he calls it my house. He says, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations, not just the Jewish people, for all nations. The Jewish people today, they are actually opening their eyes to that verse. They're realizing that this is not just going to be a Jewish temple. This is a radical change in their dichotomy here, no, that's not the right word, in their psyche, that they see the importance of the Gentiles involved. And it's based on a few verses. The verse that I just quoted, my house will be a house of prayer for all nations. And also in Isaiah chapter 2, it says, in that day, the mountain of the Lord will be exalted above all nations. That's Mount Zion. And all the nations will go up to her. And see, this is the importance. Do you remember when we had that Rabbi Yehuda Glick on live? And I know he got off on a tangent, but he was pounding the issue of Zionism, what true Zionism is, what it really means. And he was talking about Mount Zion, Mount Zion. He got it. He understands that Mount Zion is the Temple Mount, the rebuilding of the temple, the last days when all the nations will go up. He also gets people, Christians from all nations involved. This is radical. Now, I'm not saying, and you know I go on about this a lot, I'm not saying we need a new temple. We don't need a temple because we don't need a sacrifice for our sins because Yeshua, Jesus, he's paid the price. But we know that scripturally there's going to be a rebuilt temple. I believe it's going to reignite in the Jewish conscience the need, because a lot of them don't see the need for sacrifice of sins. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us, Messianic Jews and Christians, to evangelize the Jewish people, to tell them, yes, you see all these sacrifices, these are just a prototype. Look in Isaiah 53. It talks about a Messiah who himself will be the great sacrifice. So I'm excited about it.
Okay, so let me ask you this. How many out of what did we have? 4 or 5 red heifers? How many do we have?
I believe it's 5.
Okay, so one's been disqualified, bringing us to 4? Or have 3 been disqualified, bringing us to 2? Because I'm reading different reports.
Yeah, and I'm also hearing and reading different reports. And that's why I think this guy, Byron, he didn't go into detail with me deliberately. He didn't want to. He said, I'm releasing this statement. And the statement doesn't give hardly any news. All it says is preparations are continuing. There are conflicting reports. That's as far as he went. So we don't know for sure, but obviously some are disqualified. But I mentioned about a month ago that they are, and he told me this personally, that they are artificially inseminating the red heifers. So they are procreating other red heifers.
And if you look up red heifers on X, there are some people that are quite angry about this. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want it talked about. They're using it to spout anti-Semitism. And there are other folks that are quite excited about it because they think it tells us where we are on God's prophetic time calendar. So when you say that it's, quote, dangerous, that's the word on the street, yeah, I can see why. Let's open the phone lines, 1-800-347-9829, 1-800-347-9, what again is it, guys? 1-800-347-9829, there you go, 1-800-347-9829. Phone lines now open. We'll be right back.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Bella Grace elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
Right, 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions on anything. Epstein, is President Trump using this as leverage himself? Is this just a massive thing that involves people that even are in the MAGA movement? Is it world leaders? And they're putting pressure on him that if this comes out, we're not cutting deals with you, we're done. What's going on? Your thoughts on that? The red heifers, all of it. 1-800-347-9829. Now, Logan says, I don't follow the social media, but I guess apparently someone on social media is saying, are you guys excited about this? You think sacrifices are needed today? No, they're not. They're not needed today. We're not celebrating that. We don't believe that. What we're saying is we believe it tells us where we are and can give us an idea of where we are on God's prophetic calendar. We know that for there to be an antichrist, there has to be a temple, because Daniel tells us that he sets up an image that speaks words of blasphemy. It's the false prophet, and he breathes into it. The word for breathes in there is the same word as spirit, like we see in Acts, where it's a spirit or a demon. So I believe the false prophet calls in or breathes in a false spirit or a demon into this false image in the temple. Well, it means you have to have a temple. So I'm not looking for the Antichrist. I'm looking for the return of Christ. But I am told in the scriptures to understand the book of Revelation, and that those who do it, a special blessing comes. That's right there in the first chapter of Revelation 1. Jesus chided the religious leaders of his day who could discern the weather, but not the times. Jesus tells us to keep our eye on the olive tree, to be watching for what's happening. And we're seeking to do that. But that's not because we're excited for animal sacrifice. There's one sacrifice, Christ. He laid down his life willingly as a ransom for sinners who placed their faith and trust in him. What we're watching here is, hey, where are we? We see everything lining up for a one world currency. No one can buy or sell, mark of the beast type thing, right? World government, the world divided into 10 regions, all these things. A North American Union, European Union, and now a temple. Don't you guys find it a little interesting that all these things are happening at the same time that the Bible says are going to come to pass? Well, that's the point. So I hope that clarifies that. Your thoughts, folks. 1-800-347-9829. Fred, line 1 in Ohio. Hi, Fred.
Hi, Brandon. I've been trying to get a hold of y'all for a while. I don't know why, but what I always want to know is I have a lot of things to say, but what I have to say is I was just wondering about why they're taking the grooves out of the highways and filling them up with blacktop when people are texting more and more and more driving.
Why are they taking the grooves out of the interstate?
Yes, along the interstate or anywhere where they have the grooves. They're supposed to be for when you fall asleep.
Right.
But I think really it helps texting and driving when I'm driving back and forth to work every day and they're driving outside the road on the wrong side of the road. And I just wonder, why are they filling them in? And, what was the purpose of doing that? To be safety, then take them away, especially like the warning lights for the red lights. Heavy traffic areas. They're taking them out also.
Is it because of the autonomous cars they're planning and that will mess them up? What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, what my thoughts is they're not wanting nobody to be safe, along with taking that out and the lights. The reason why they put the lights in, there was a young lady and 2 young children that got killed. So they put the caution lights in to let people know that the light was getting ready to turn red to slow them down. So, they took them out as long as and they, taking the grooves out of the highway. And texting and driving, it's worse than DWIs. Yep. I have videos of people on the wrong side of the road about ready to head-on car collisions, and it don't even steer them.
Well, I agree with you, Fred, that those should stay. I did not know they were being taken out. I find the call interesting. Let me comment. I'll let you hang up and listen. But, it's funny you bringing this up because Logan and I were with Melissa, we're on a two-way road, pretty windy two-way road not too long ago. And I said, you think about it, we're all going 55 miles an hour on these roads, passing each other. You really think about it, it's kind of a stupid highway system we have in a lot of the country. Why do we not have more space between us with a rivet going down the center of each side? Each side would have a rivet on their side that tells you you're getting too close to the center, back up, and you would leave maybe 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, whatever, in the middle between each lane. I said, why? Why? Because they don't want to take up 2.5 feet on either side? I mean, it seems like you'd save a lot of lives doing this. So it's kind of interesting you called in at about the time we were talking about that last week. I don't know why they're doing it other than maybe autonomous cars. I know it doesn't fit with our topic today, but it is interesting. Steve in Florida, line 2. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, hey, good afternoon. First of all, I want to say, Aaron, you're one of the most pleasant people I've ever observed being interviewed, so God bless you.
He liked that. He's smiling really big.
What I want to say is this, Brandon, couple quick things. First of all, you ought to have G. Edward Griffin on, the author of The Creature from Jekyll.
Oh, I've had him on many times. I've had him on many times. I've had him on many times, and I've talked to him about 2 or 3 times in the last few months, and we are working to get him back on.
Yeah, because of your situation, what you're dealing with the IRS. The other thing I want to say is this about the flip-flops of Trump in the last week. You know, all the things you've covered at length, and it really irks me, but here's the thing I want to bring up. Why has nobody ever called out Donald Trump? And look, I voted for him in 2020 and 2024. Why has nobody ever called him out on his adultery on his wife Ivana with Marla Maples? He's never come out publicly. He claims to be a Christian, but yet he's never come out publicly repenting of that and apologizing for what he did, because, you know, the Word of God says in Proverbs 6 about the adulterer, he lacks understanding, and he destroys his own soul, and a wounded dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away. I'm not saying he can't be forgiven. I'm just saying I've never seen any evidence of repentance on his part about this.
And,
so
you know
to
what,
me,
Steve?
it makes sense why he would be flip-flopping now on critical issues.
Yeah, well, Steve, you bring up a very good point, and he was asked, you know, have you ever asked God to forgive you of your sins? And he's on video saying no. So I hope that's changed in his life since July 13th and that fateful day. But you bring up a legitimate question. Alice from Alaska, line 4. Go quick, Alice. I'll get you in. Hi, Alice. Go quick, Alice. Alice. Line 4. All right.
Hi, I'm not from Alaska. I'm from Arkansas.
Oh, they put
Hi,
AK.
Brandon. How are you?
Good. They put AK, which means Alaska in my world. But go ahead.
Hi. I wanted to talk about the invisible bombs. Oh, Brandon, America's in trouble, but she's in spiritual trouble. And I want to reiterate a wonderful history I learned from one of your programs years ago.
I wish I could hear more, but we're out of time, Alice. I wish. Stay tuned for Crosstalk. Take care, guys. All right, we're back. You know, we had a call from South Dakota. She wanted to talk about, Laura from South Dakota, talk about the Green New Deal. A lot of people have a lot of comments to make today that we're not on target, but that's okay. It's just so many things out there that everybody wants to talk about, and they're all pressing, a lot of them, aren't they? All right, so Aaron, let's talk about the Gaza Strip. In my Worldview Report newscast tonight, I'm talking about Gaza. And I guess now after 630 days of war and taking out much of Hamas's top structure, you're still fighting there. There are 5 Israeli soldiers who were killed in combat in the Gaza. The Israeli army admitted that on Tuesday in what was one of the deadliest days for Israeli forces in the Palestinian territory, so-called. Tell us, they're still fighting, and apparently Hamas is finding their ways into these holes and tunnels, and I don't know where they're coming from to replenish their troops, but clearly they're continuing to fight there aggressively. What's your latest update?
Yeah, you're right. However, there are even Hamas commanders who are saying that we have lost. We have lost control. Financially, they're not getting paid anymore. They're a sinking ship. But here's the problem, especially in the Muslim world, and especially in the jihadist Muslim world, where they live a death cult.
Right.
They don't care if they die anymore. What are they going to do? They're going to surrender? No, because there's honor and shame in their culture and in their religion. So they're gonna go down with the ship. But the problem is, and the question is, how many people and how many hostages are they going to take down with them? And this has been the problem since day one, the hostages. Now, our boys are now 75% controlling the Gaza Strip. That is incredible how far we've come. There are still lots of tunnels that need to be discovered and blown up and taken care of and all of that. We are wedging them into certain corridors. Haven't got time to go into all of that. But we are squeezing them, Brandon. We are squeezing them as much as we can. We are pounding them. We are relentlessly not letting them get away. Now, one of the problems for us are our soldiers. They're not only they're tired, but we lack some soldiers. Fatigue. Some of them have been sent home to rebuild their lives, rebuild whatever they have left of their marriages and their families and their businesses. So, and of course, that leads to the issue of the religious Jewish people that refuse to be enlisted. And this is one of the reasons why the public want them to be enlisted, because we need them. So the battle is still raging. Don't let the public be fooled.
All right, let me get you another one real quick for around time. Saudi royal family source: an agreement between Israel and Syria would pave the way for normalization. What do you know about that?
Well, they are basically, what are they doing, Brandon? They are putting down their cards and saying, we are for Israel and Saudi Arabia they're putting without them coming along and saying, yeah, we want to be part of it. They're basically saying to the world, we're for it. And this is a big part of the talks that are on the table between Trump and Netanyahu. This is radical stuff that's happening. Yep. Syria, we haven't had talks with Syria for decades, and we're on the verge of making peace with them. So absolutely amazing things. Now, of course, there's big dangers about it. We're talking about a wanted terrorist who had a $10 million bounty on his head. But that's what, our government are deciding. I'm concerned about Syria, and I'll tell you the main reason why is because north of Syria, everyone knows is where? Turkey. Mm-hmm. And Turkey want their feet inside of Syria. And this could open the door for Turkey to come in. We don't want them on our borders, that's for sure.
Wow. LightToTheNationsMinistry.com, LightToTheNationsMinistry.com. Aaron, thank you as always.
Pleasure, Brandon. Thank you. God bless.
You too. We're going to get a show put together with Bob Cornuke and Aaron and talk about the Temple Mount and the City of David. That'll be a great conversation. All right. Hey, folks, if you appreciate what we're doing, we need your support now more than ever, please. Thank you for those that already are. WorldviewFoundation.com, WorldviewFoundation.com. You also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Big show tonight on Brandon House Live. I've got with us a lady whose husband was thrown into jail, federal prison. You won't believe the reason why. Patrick Wood, David Pine, so many great guests tonight. Hope you'll join us. Till then, I'm Brandon House. May God save America. Take care.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years.